Hi everybody, welcome to Ellie and Eden. Last week on our Instagram post, I promised to share with you our P&L template that we used in creating our initial financial plan and to help us manage our initial cash flow. So what you're going to see is a really quick, easy spreadsheet to use. I understand it doesn't cover everything. When your business starts growing and expanding, you're going to need a far more robust plan than this, but this should be enough to get you started and kind of help you plan that initial profits and your initial sales. And so the way I designed this was I created 3 specific buckets that I wanted to look at. One is just our sales and our inventory flow. The second is our marketing expenses. And the third would be any other additional expenses that you needed to run the business. So the first thing we're going to talk about is this sales and inventory component. Now, these numbers are not true Ellie and Eden numbers. I kind of dummied up some stuff within this document, but it's going to give you a pretty good idea on how we managed our business and how we planned our business. So I like to plan everything at the unit level and then use an average cost and an average retail to populate all of the dollar amounts in here. So that's the way these formulas are set up. You can change that if you want to, but for our initial plan, I wanted to see it from a sales unit standpoint. So first off, the way the spreadsheet is set up is I created just this quick little bucket here where you type in what your average cost is and what your average unit retail is. So here we're going to say our average cost is $10. And when I type this in, you're going to see some of these formulas populate. So I'll type in the 10 and it fills out a large portion of the sheet. Now in the cost, one thing that's important for you to keep in that number is everything that it costs to get the product to you, to where you're shipping from. In my case, it's our basement. So that cost needs to be all encompassing of getting the shipping cost of getting the product from the manufacturer to my basement, the cost of any hang tags. So think of it, that cost embedded in there is anything you need to have to sell the goods. And so you don't want to forget anything in that initial cost piece of it. The second component you're going to type in here is your average unit retail. Now I did include a tab here to help you calculate that. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail in this particular example. I will have separate little classes that I can show you how to do this in more in depth, but for the purposes of this example, we'll keep it pretty simple. So you're just going to type in your $35, you're going to put your cost in here, and then you're going to type in your estimated sales units for the year. So let's say in 2020, you're going to sell 20,000 units. We'll go ahead and just type that in there. Then it's super easy to kind of put these percentages in. You know, when you go to a website and a little pop-up box says, enter your email, get 20% off. You're going to have some of those types of promotions. So we're going to pretend we have 3 different percent offs that we'll use. We'll have a 20% off promotion, we'll have a 10% off promotion, and then the balance is things that we will sell at regular price. So I'm going to put 0% off. Whoops, we're going to send 0% off. And then you can see how our ticket retail here has changed to be 20% off, 10% off, and then at regular price. Then in this box, you're just going to say how much of this 20,000 units do you think you are going to sell at 20% off. So we're going to say we're going to sell 20% of our 20,000 units is going to be at 20%, 30% at 10%, and 50% off, or 50% at regular price. Again, there's a different method. There's some thought process behind here. I'm not going to go through it today, but again, you type in what you think is going to be there, and then it gives us a weighted average unit retail of $32.55. So we're going to go ahead and plug that $32.55 in there, and you can see the rest of my formula is populated based on those numbers. Okay, then the next thing we did was I needed a starting point in terms of how many receipts was I bringing in. We knew we had a launch of November 1st, and we want to plug in our receipt units. Now, we're going to be very conservative in our plan. We don't believe in taking significant risks. We're self-funding the company, so we need to be very careful about how we're spending our resources. We have 6 styles. We're going to make a decision that we're only going to bring in 4 of the 6 styles. We want to take the first couple months and really vet out our fit, our fabric, our quality, make sure everything is the way we want it presented before we start really investing heavily into the brand. So let's say we have 4 styles, minimum quantity of 300, so we're going to bring our receipts of 1,200. I'm going to type that in there. Then you can start seeing this $12,000 is a formula based on the cost that we put in here. If we put in $11, then that number changes. So you can do that accordingly. So then we're not planning any sales in the month of October, and we're launching in November. So we're going to start November with the full inventory levels of 1,200. That's our beginning month plan. 1,200 units. We're going to sell 300 units, and then this calculates the cost of the sales, the retail sales, a sell-through percent in there. It calculates an EOP, and then adds into that EOP would be added in any receipts. So we're not going to have receipts for the balance of the year. Again, we want to just validate the proof of the program first. An assumption we made in here when the sell-through percents is we are basing the sell-through on the beginning inventory and no receipts. We made an assumption that the receipts that came in that month would not be available to sell until the following month. You can change that if you want. There's no right or wrong way to calculate it. That is just the way that I set up this spreadsheet. Now, if you look here, we've got a sales plan keyed in here based on the unit level. January, again, very conservative. We're going to start scaling up the receipts here. We feel pretty good about where we're at. Receipts again in March, skip a month, and then once we really are okay, we feel good about what we're doing, we feel like we have enough styles in there, launching new styles, we can start really investing more into the receipts, and you can see then our sales units increase incrementally as we get more product in the market and we start learning how to sell the goods online. So if we just at the very end here in 2020, we plan on selling roughly 20,000 units. You can see the sales cost is almost 200,000. Our sales retail, again, is based on this average AUR. If that average AUR needs to drop, you can see then where that number will drop accordingly. You then look at our sell-through percent. The way this is calculated is roughly 72%, and walk through our gross margin dollars. Right now are calculated to be about $441,000, bringing in $26,000 worth of receipts that would have cost us $265,000 in inventory. That's great if this was our profit, but we know we're not going to make $441,000. We have other expenses that need to come out of this number. So we'll show you how we broke out those expenses. So within the marketing piece of it, I really considered marketing anything that was forward-facing to the customer and helped us sell the product. So we have photography in there, giveaways. We have them plan to give a certain amount of product away, seeding the market. Web maintenance, we're using BigCommerce as our platform right now. And the first couple months, we're going to do all the work ourselves. We're any maintenance. But we do know as we start to get more business and start to be involved in driving traffic that I may have to farm some of that out. So I just put a little bit of dollars every month if I need somebody to help me update the website. Platform fees, I kind of counted that as any fees that it takes to run the e-commerce site, anything that BigCommerce would charge us. These are made up numbers in here, but I may hire a e-commerce or a email service that helps us send out our emails. So you're going to want to make sure those fees are accounted for. So I've got a placeholder in there for those fees. Keyword, I called it keyword, but it's really any additional marketing that I'd have to spend on Facebook advertising or Instagram advertising, any Google keywords I may need to invest in. Now, again, these numbers are made up. I do feel these numbers between these platform fees and keywords probably needs to go up significantly as we grow the business. Social help. I have nothing planned for the first half of the year, but as we get into 2020, one of the things that is very important is that you have a consistent brand message. I'm not super strong at social media, so I know I'm going to have to hire somebody to help me maybe create some filters for photography so all of my images look similar. I might need to have somebody help me create content for social. They could do it way faster than I can and a lot more professional than I can do it. So I've got some dollars plugged for help with that. Pop-up shops, we think it's really important to get our product in front of the customer. Having a direct-to-consumer website is great, but if people can't touch your product, see your product, get to know you as a brand, then you're at a disadvantage. So I plugged in about $15,000 that we can take our product on the road and start getting it in front of the customer through different experiences. And then donations, we think it's really important for us to give back to the communities that we serve, give back to the women that help support us. So we've got some dollars associated with donation factor. And then the next thing we have is other expenses. So this would be just expenses of running the business. Shipping, I created your shipping to be by unit. So you could say estimate of it's going to cost me roughly $3 a unit to ship the product. If you have something big and bulky, maybe you're $6 a unit in there. You could type in whatever you need makes sense for your business and whatever your analysis is. Packaging, that is anything it costs for me to put our underwear into a package and ship it to the customer. Office supplies, I've just put a nominal fee in there, but you might have additional supplies if you have computers, staff, anything in there. You'd want to make sure that you've included that in your expenses. Travel, if we need to go to trade shows, we need to do product development, we need to visit the manufacturer, I put a budget in for that. And contract wages, I put a little bit of dollars in here. It scales up towards the end of the year. I see that as if I'm pick, packing, and shipping from our basement, I can do 300 units with friends and family a month. That's not a problem, but as I get to the back half of the year, if I plan on sending out 2,000 units a month, I'm not sure I can handle that workload ourselves. So I've kind of plugged in, assuming that I'm going to have to hire somebody to help us manage different components of the business. Product development, again, we're a fashion brand. I want to make sure we're always growing our SKU base. We're adding prints and patterns. So I plugged in some product development money. Returns is something that you are going to have to figure out from yourself. I've set the spreadsheet up to say I need a 10% return factor in there. Underwear gets a little bit difficult because if somebody's worn the underwear, I can't even donate it. So I'll have a throwaway factor in there of not being able to sell it. Some of your returns you could resell it depending on what it is. Our business model may or may not have a higher return rate, so I can change this to say 15%, and that would cover anything that is just not sellable that I have to throw away. So I would definitely encourage you to spend some time on that returns piece, that you want to make sure that's planned high enough for your particular business model. The next component is net profit. For the purpose of this spreadsheet, I wasn't really using this piece of it, but I wanted it in there. It's just taking our gross margin dollars here and subtracting out our marketing expenses and our other expenses, and how much profit did I make in that month. What was more important for me was looking at the cash flow component of it. That is really where it was most important for me to focus on. So within this cash flow piece of it, if you look at it here, is we pretty much have negative cash flow up until we get to the end of the year, and there's some ways we can adjust for that as well. But this is really, because we're self-funding, the most important thing for me to look at right now is in month 1, I'm going to have to purchase $12,000 worth of receipts. I have no sales, so I have no income coming in. I need to put out another $2,700 for marketing, and I need to put out another $3,000 in other expenses just to get the business to where I can start selling. And then if you come up to the next month, you can see in here, we're going to bring in income of $9,765. We're going to have no additional receipt expenses. I'm going to have additional marketing expenses and different other expenses. So I started out $17,000 in the hole. I added $9,700 worth of profit, but then I also had additional expenses here. So I'm still $13,000 in the hole. And the same thing we get to December is I'm $13,000 in the hole. I have $9,000 coming in profit, but I still have additional expenses. So I'm still in the negative here. I continue to be in the negative. So there's things you can do here, like we could say, I'm not comfortable being $21,000 in the hole. I can either scale back on my giveaways. Maybe I'm not giving away anything that month. I can say maybe I can't afford this $2,000 product development, that needs to move over a month here where I can have a little bit better of a cash flow. And so there's things you can do to adjust it. The easiest thing to do to adjust it is to figure out how to sell more product. So if we said, I really need to push here if I'm bringing in this much here, but I can get my sales up to 1,000 units versus the 800, then I can come down here and my cash flow all of a sudden starts to look better. So those are things you can play around with, things that you can adjust for. This spreadsheet, there's a couple things it doesn't do that you'll have to do on the side or think of differently. I didn't calculate the giveaways. Now these 400 units of giveaways, I have to have part of my receipt plan So when I go to my vendor, I really need to buy here. I need to buy the 1200 plus these 400s. So my cash flow isn't exactly accurate. But I felt it was more important for me to have those numbers down here versus up here, and I just know I have to adjust in my cash flow to accommodate the purchasing of the giveaways. And then the other thing it doesn't do, which is a very important component, is it doesn't take into consideration any dating right now. So I wanted to create this P&L as the worst case scenario of what is the worst look to our cash flow that we could have. That way I kind of avoided any surprises. So I assumed that I wouldn't be able to leverage anything with our vendors to get dating. So the month that the product was received was the month I'm anticipating that I would have to sell it or have to pay for it. So it makes a huge difference. You can see if I don't have to pay for this 2,400 units in the month I bring it in, all of a sudden I have a positive cash flow. So if I didn't have to pay for that until this month, it makes a difference. So I didn't factor that in here. I don't want to factor it in. I wanted it to be as worst case scenario as possible. But if I can negotiate a 30 days dating or 60 days dating with my partners, then that gives me a chance to sell the product before I'm paying for it, which obviously is the model that you would love to have as you move forward. Well, thanks for joining us over the last 20 plus minutes. Hopefully you learned a little on planning your business. If you like what you saw and you want to continue to see behind the scenes look at building a fashion brand as it's happening, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Our website is almost ready to start collecting emails, and when we get it ready, we're going to provide you the ability to download some of these spreadsheets to access some of the information that we provide. In the meantime, if you want the sheet, just send me over a message on any of these platforms and we'll get it out to you as soon as possible. If you have any questions, just ask. We'd love to hear from you. It's hard to do this. It's hard to build this community. It's hard to build a brand, and we're all in the same boat. So if you want to share information, you want information from us, just send it on over. We'd be happy to help, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.